Hi, I'm Tony Trigilio, and I will be reading from my newest book, Craft a Memoir, which was published by Marsh Press and is a finalist for the 2023 Big Other Book Award in Nonfiction. Thank you to John Madera and to Big Other. I'm going to be reading a short excerpt from chapter 6 of the book. The chapter is titled Writing What You Don't Know. And this chapter previously appeared in a different form in Big Other. So thanks again, John, and thanks again, Big Other. What leads up to this excerpt in the chapter is essentially a discussion about the arcane, the occult, and psychic phenomena as craft elements. And that leads to where I'm going to begin the excerpt, where I talk about my newest collection of poetry. My most recent volume of poetry, Proof Something Happened, is inspired by high strangeness and arcana, specifically by the post-World War II flying saucer phenomenon. The book is a collection of documentary poems exploring the alleged UFO abduction of Betty and Barney Hill in New Hampshire's White Mountains in 1961. The poems take no stand on the possibility of extraterrestrial life and alien abduction. The collection presumes only that the 3 hours of missing time that the Hills experienced in the White Mountains truly did happen psychologically, whether caused by an alien abduction or something else on the fringes of the known. As the poems explore the aftermath of that evening in 1961, they emphasize the Hills' struggle to understand their terrifying dreams and disjunctive flashbacks, a situation worsened by the traumas of racism. And as an interracial couple, the Hills were marginalized in their effort to be taken seriously as they went public with their experience. Their attempt to prove something happened was met with resistance by a white supremacist culture that was also skeptical about the likelihood of extraterrestrial life. Rather than render the arcane as a mode of transcendental escapism, the book is an effort to understand ordinary quotidian states of consciousness by exploring unsettling extremes on the margins of consciousness. My interest in the margins of vision, in this case, my interest in a phantasmic alien encounter, is actually an effort to re-envision the center. What follows in the chapter is a discussion of one of the poems in Proof Something Happened. The poem is called The Orb, and I talk about how I had been on a research trip to Durham, New Hampshire, and as part of the researching Proof Something Happened, the book that became Proof Something Happened, and as part of that research, I wanted to go into the White Mountains and drive to the Hills' alleged abduction site and get a feel for it in terms of its sense, what it feels like to my 5 senses, to write about it in terms of the senses, the emotions, and anything arcane or highly strange beyond the 5 senses. Sounds great, but for 4 consecutive days of my research trip, it stormed horribly, terrible thunderstorms every day. Every time I tried to drive into the mountains, I had to turn right back. I pick up the chapter talking about the 5th time I tried to go into the mountains. My 5th attempt, the night I began writing The Orb, seemed different at first. Overcast skies, but no hint of rain. The weather changed dramatically just a few miles into the mountains when a flash storm struck. The pounding rain made visibility impossible, and I had to turn back around. As I drove back to my hotel, I resigned myself that I would not, after all, write a poem about visiting the Hills' alleged abduction site. I decided instead to write about trying and failing to drive there. Little did I know the strange turn my poem would take as I neared Durham, driving on Route 108 as the latest thunderstorm cleared. Just a few miles from my hotel, I saw a bright dollop of light above me in the nighttime sky, a white orb, an oddly bulbous image the likes of which I'd never seen in the sky before, flying from right to left in my field of vision. In the moment it took for the orb to move across the sky, I tried to rationalize it as an identifiably terrestrial object. Probably a helicopter, though I saw no tail outline or tail light. I didn't have time to think much further about it, though. As I gazed at the sky through my car's windshield, I nearly drove myself off the road. When I looked up again, the orb was gone from my field of vision. In my rearview mirror, I took note of the ditch I'd nearly driven myself into, a moment I dramatized in a parenthetical aside in The Orb, emphasizing the danger of watching a luminous object in the sky while driving an automobile. And I quote now from the poem, "Now I know why Barney Hill pulled their car into a picnic area." And as an aside, yeah, if you're ever looking up at the sky and you see a luminous object in the sky, don't look out your windshield at it. It's very dangerous to drive in that kind of situation. I don't care whether I saw an extraterrestrial craft that night or whether it was instead an earthbound aircraft or an explainable trick of the light in the nighttime sky. Of course, I'd love to know if the truth really is out there, as the old X-Files tagline goes. When it comes to UFO sightings, however, I take the lead of journalist Leslie Kane and describe myself as an agnostic. I wish I knew definitively what I saw that night in the sky outside Durham, but I can't know for sure. In the absence of trustworthy proof that something happened, I have no other option but to abide in agnosticism. And I should add that agnosticism is a really important operative metaphor in the whole book, but especially in this chapter, a really important metaphor for the writing process itself. Going into a project, a poem, an essay, whatever I'm writing, with an agnostic mind, not I know exactly what's going to happen in this poem, but I don't know, and I'm going to wait for the poem to help guide me and direct me to what it has to say. I'm more interested in what the experience felt like and how this mysterious occurrence outside Durham generated an emotional foundation for the poem. In that instant, watching something mysterious flying above me, a shape and movement I'd never seen before in the sky, my frame of reference suddenly lapsed into a dizzying groundlessness, a conceptual vertigo that demonstrates the limitation of the familiar writing workshop dictum, write what you know. I find it more valuable to write with an eye toward what I don't know. To proceed from unknowing is unsettling and potentially destabilizing because it invariably leads to what I described earlier as feelings of groundlessness and conceptual vertigo. But inhabiting an I don't know mind or beginner's mind, as it's often described in Zen Buddhism, prepares me to recognize moments of self-discovery when they arise in my writing. What to do when you look to the sky and see something that violates your foundational understanding of who you are, of who others are, of what should be up there in the sky and what is literally alien. Write about it.